Here we are, clan the isms, cataclysm, great. Our people out here struggling, trying to make it in this state. Everybody out here doing it, but we the ones who late. Now family, we the ones who gotta delegate. Get that money in the power, never be fake. Stick to cosign for 3. What did he say? Create jobs, support our own. Educate the same and buy back your home. Got 3 degrees, triple 10. 3 PhDs, now we on the CNN. DBTV, let's talk about negligence. Ignorance is bliss, but we can turn it to intelligence. Believe none of what you hear, half of what you see. Let's break it down here on Dr Boyce TV. Here we are.
Hey, what's up, guys? I'm Dr. Boyce Watkins, and welcome to drboycetv.com. This is the home for intelligent black people. So if you're not black and intelligent, you may want to leave. This is not the place for you. I'm not going to take a lot of time here today. I just wanted to, first of all, wish you guys a happy Juneteenth. Today, the day of this recording, is June 19th, 2020, which is the Juneteenth holiday. And so I think it's important for us to celebrate our holidays. I really don't care if the federal government recognizes Juneteenth. I recognize Juneteenth, and that's all that matters. We are the federal government in our house. You are the government in your home. You are the government in your life. You decide who your heroes are going to be. You decide when your holidays are going to be. So Malcolm X's birthday is a national holiday in our house. Marcus Garvey's birthday is a national holiday in our house. Harriet Tubman's birthday is a national holiday in our house. Juneteenth is a national holiday in our house. And I don't need the federal government or any white person anywhere to tell me when I can have a holiday, because I'm going to take a holiday when I damn well please. So do me a favor, hit the thumbs up button, hit the share button, hit the subscribe button. What's up to you guys on Instagram? My Instagram is The Real Boyce Watkins. And also, don't ask me, today we're not going to talk about what's going on in the stock market. If you want to know more about that, I did a report this morning on the Black Financial Channel. That's theblackfinancialchannel.com. So if you want to know about black, financial news and commentary from a black perspective, go subscribe, theblackfinancialchannel.com. Now I want to get a little bit political. I talked to Jay Morrison the other day, and Jay has a great template for the creation of a party. I believe he calls it the Black Rights Party. And I told him, you have my full support. I'm behind this. I think it's a great idea. And Dr. Claude Anderson, in his books, Powernomics and Black Labor, White Wealth, has spoken extensively about the need to create a party in our community. Not so much one where we're necessarily trying to run a candidate and get elected, but one where we can at least vote as a block, or have our own votes and decide, who we support and what we believe and things like that. Why is that important? Well, it's very important because, what's going on right now is you have a huge opportunity in the black community, right? A lot of things are happening. That R.I.P. Rayshard Brooks, R.I.P. George Floyd, R.I.P. Breonna Taylor. These individuals did not die in vain. They created an avenue through which many white folks have decided, for whatever reason, that they suddenly have had a moment of clarity about the things they've been doing to black people for 400 years. Is it real? I don't know. Is it sustainable? I don't know. But it's definitely different. It's not what it was before, and I think that's a good thing. So what's been happening now is that white folks are having conversations they weren't willing to have before. For example, conversations about reparations, which are extremely important conversations. They owe us about $14.7 trillion. They owe us. So my question is, when can we expect payment? I'm like the bill collector up in that mug. Like when can we expect payment on that $14.7 trillion? Because we have had to send you to, we've had to sell your debt to the bill collectors because you have not paid. You are refusing to pay, and white woman tears is not adequate compensation. Public apologies are not adequate compensation. Marching and praying with us is not adequate compensation. A Dr. King dinner every year is not adequate compensation. Symbolism is not adequate compensation. Painting Black Lives Matter on the street, going up to the White House is not adequate compensation. Money is adequate compensation. So we will take money, we will take land, we will take a cashier's check. Whatever form of payment you want to use, we'll accept that, but we're not going to accept anything symbolic. We want substance. Can we agree with that? Type yes in the chat if you understand. Type the word substance. Type the word tangibles. Substance, tangibles. Very, very important. When can we expect payment? Cut the check. That's a good hashtag. Use that hashtag. I had to make that point clear. I'm an economics guy, and money is what moves this world. 2 billion acres of land or something crazy like that was given away to other people, and we never got our cut. We want our cut. We want our share. That's where the conversation will start and finish. At that point, I don't give a shit if you like me or not. I don't care if you think that I'm a good guy or a bad guy. I don't care if you're racist against against me or not. Honestly, I don't care about that stuff. I don't care if a white woman looks at me and calls me the N-word. Well, guess what? I'm gonna call you a name too. How about that? Stop the victimhood. Stop that. You're not a victim. You're not a wimp. You're not a nobody. If somebody talks smack about you, you talk smack right back. If somebody hits you, you hit them back. You don't get in the car and cry and tell them, oh my God, it's so... No, you're warrior people. You're strong people, and I need you to be strong for your community. So let's keep going. Hit the thumbs up button, hit the share button, hit the subscribe button. Let me read some of this to you. Let's talk for a second about one thing that has to be made clear as we're going through this movement. There's an organization called Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter is kind of in the forefront of all of this. And Black Lives Matter is a little bit like what the ADOS movement was. ADOS stood for American Descendants of Slaves. These two movements are two movements that are a little bit problematic because the idea, behind, the symbolic name of, if you will, of the organization is something we can all connect to. So, for example, if you say American Descendants of Slaves, it's like, oh, I'm an American Descendants of Slaves, right? But having the designation is not the same as being part of the organization, right? Because organizations get led by people who sometimes have their own agenda, right? So with ADOS, there was confusion because a lot of people said, oh, I identify as ADOS. But then when they saw what the leadership was doing, the leadership didn't make much sense in terms of their agenda. It just wasn't run properly. It just bad leadership. So a lot of folks began to separate the designation from the organization. Well, I think that when you talk about Black Lives Matter, you have to kind of be able to do the same thing. How many of you, give me a yes or no in the chat right now, how many of you agree that Black Lives Matter? You give me a yes if you believe Black Lives Matter as much or more than white people. Give me a yes if you believe Black Lives Matter, right? I'm going to raise both hands because I definitely believe Black Lives Matter. Even before white people told me that was true, I knew that my life mattered because that's my life. I'm black and it's very important to me, right? So Black Lives Matter is something we can all agree with. That's something we can all relate to. That's something that resonates with... Resonates? Is that the word? Resonates. It's the morning. I ain't had all my coffee yet, so you got to forgive me. I'm going to jack up some words here. Just call it ebonics or something. Anyway, so it resonates with a lot of us, right? Black Lives Matter. Yeah, Black Lives Matter. Woo. Here's the problem. Black Lives Matter is not an organization that was created by black people. Most of you know this. I want to make sure that we reiterate this. George Soros, a liberal white billionaire, created Black Lives Matter, funded Black Lives Matter so that he could galvanize black support under the umbrella of a leftist agenda, right? What does that mean? Doesn't mean it's bad. Some of the ideas are very good ideas. But you must understand the difference between an organization that includes black people versus an organization that is run by black people. You must know the difference between a vehicle that is owned and driven by black people versus a vehicle where black people are, play the role of the front left tire, right? You have to understand the difference between being in a vehicle that black people are controlling versus one where we're in the passenger seat or we're riding in the trunk. Black Lives Matter is an organization that is being driven by the George Soroses, being driven by the leftists, whether it's Antifa or whatever, being driven by the Democratic Party, where black people live in the trunk. Black people we are the front left tire. Some might even say we're the engine because we drive a lot of the politics in America. So I think that while you can certainly respect and appreciate part of the agenda of Black Lives Matter, I don't think that they're necessarily bad. And in fact, I don't have any problem with an agenda that supports the rights for members of the LGBT community to be respected. I don't have any problem with an agenda that supports the rights of women to have all the equality that they deserve. I don't have any problem with an agenda that says that American capitalism is certainly quite abusive to the poor, and we need better safety nets. We need a wealth redistribution. I don't have any problem with any of those things. But I think it's very important to understand the difference between a Black Lives Matter agenda and a black nationalist Malcolm X style agenda, right? A black nationalist agenda says that that's more of the mission that we have in the Black Business School. Black people should educate our own children We should create our own jobs. We should support our own businesses. We should police our own communities. We should control the politics in our community. That's a very different agenda from what Black Lives Matter is talking about. In fact, a Malcolm X style agenda or a Black nationalist agenda, Marcus Garvey-ish, style agenda of Black liberation, true Black liberation, it kind of just means that we just get to control our own destiny, and we're not going to get caught up in what they call the horizontal issues. Dr. Claude Anderson in Powernomics speaks extensively about horizontal issues, like whether it's feminism or it's immigration issues that may or may not help Black people. He actually speaks in a way that explains how immigration was used to dilute and to harm the Black community, how they wanted to bring anybody into America except Black people so that Black people would have less economic power, so Black people have less political power, right? So a lot of the issues that are going to be brought to the table by a leftist, Black Lives Matter, George Soros, Democratic Party line of thinking is going to be in complete contradiction, in direct contradiction to what you would pursue with a Black nationalist, Black power-ish sort of agenda. When you're talking about true community empowerment, true liberation, development of our families, etc., that's not in alignment with a lot of the conversation that you'll see on Black Lives Matter. Right? So what I want to do is I'm going to read, and this is all out in plain sight. The Black Lives Matter is not hiding any of this. Guys, let me back up. They're not. It's not that they're hiding it. They're just putting that shit in the fine print. They're putting it. They're like, it's right there on the Facebook page, but they'll put it at the bottom of the page. So they'll spend, because they want to indoctrinate you into their movement, they'll spend a couple paragraphs saying it's outrageous that Black men are being killed by the cops. And you're like, yeah, that's right, it's outrageous. And it's outrageous that racism exists in America. Yeah, that's outrageous, that's outrageous. And then at the very bottom, it's like, oh, by the way, we affirm we are anti hetero supremacy or something. They create words like that, like if you're heterosexual, you think that you're superior to people that are gay. So the Billy Porters of the world are like, yeah, heterosexual Black people are bad, right? And then and then they go into this whole thing that is it's interesting. It's almost like we love the Black men, or we can identify with Black males when they are victims, when they are weak, when they are being abused by the police, but we do not identify with the strong Black males who want to lead a family. We want to tell the women, you don't really need these guys because they're filled with toxic masculinity. So the same agenda that appears to be liberating you is really only putting you on life support so they can come in and cut your throat in the middle of the goddamn night, right? The same people that claim that want to keep a George Floyd alive are the same ones who want to send your Black son to prison under the Me Too movement because a white girl accused him of rape and has no evidence whatsoever. So you have to be able to understand that you have kind of these dual objectives sort of being placed here, that where they can actually love a George Floyd in one condition and hate a George Floyd in another. If George Floyd were alive and he were doing, some of the things that they don't approve of as a Black man, whatever that means, then he becomes the enemy. But when he's being killed by the police, he becomes the ally, right? So let me explain some of this. Let me dig into this. Hit the thumbs up button. If you haven't hit the thumbs up button, please do that. And also make sure you subscribe. You can go to drboycetv.com. That's the home for intelligent Black people. If you're not Black and intelligent, I don't want you on my channel. So here's what Black Lives Matter put on their page on blacklivesmatter.com. They have a page called What We Believe, and I'm going to read this as fast as I can. It's a long statement, but it's very important to kind of break this down so we can kind of just know what it is and know what we're signing up for when we get into certain things. The other reason why I want to read this is because you got to understand all this corporate money that corporations are now, allocating to Black people isn't really going to Black people. It's not going to build independent Black schools. It's not going to necessarily build independent Black businesses, or it's not going to really sustain and support Black families. It's going to Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter can pursue whatever agenda they have, right? Which might or might not include Black people. It kind of depends. So let me dig into this and explain it, and I'll give you my perspective. This is just my point of view. This does not have to be your point of view. It says 4 years ago, what is now known as Black Lives Matter Global Network began to organize. It started out as a chapter-based, member-led organization whose mission was to build local power and to intervene when violence was inflicted on black communities by the state and vigilantes. In the years since, we've committed to struggling together and to imagining and creating a world free of anti-blackness, where every black person has the social, economic, and political power to thrive. Sounds good so far? Nice, okay. Black Lives Matter began as a call to action in response to state-sanctioned violence and anti-black racism. Our intention from the very beginning was to connect black people from all over the world who have shared desire for justice to act together in their communities. The impetus for that commitment was and still is the rampant and deliberate violence inflicted on us by the state. All right, good stuff. All right. Enraged by the death of Trayvon Martin and the subsequent acquittal of his killer, George Zimmerman, and inspired by the 31-day takeover of the Florida State Capitol by Power U and the Dream Defenders, we took to the streets. A year later, we set out together on the Black Lives Matter Freedom Ride to Ferguson in search of justice for Mike Brown and all those who've been torn apart by the state-sanctioned violence and the anti-black racism. For forever changed, we returned home and began building the infrastructure for the Black Lives Matter Global Network, which even in its infancy became a political home for many. Sounds good so far, right? Sounds really good. Now, what's interesting though is you must remember that you have to ask yourself this very fundamental, important question. When the George Floyd killing took place, why were there suddenly, tens of thousands of very well-organized white people appearing in black neighborhoods, burning down buildings and throwing bricks through windows, right? Why did this happen? And they're showing up with, gas masks and all kinds of gear, like they're prepared, like they've been ready for this, like they've been waiting on this, right? So you have to understand that this is you're part of a bigger war. That's the point I think is very important to remember as black people, is that you're part of a bigger war. They came ready. So a lot of this is a war that's been going on for over 100 years. This is not something that started with the death of George Floyd. This was a scenario in which the death of George Floyd was a catalyst to allow for an execution of a plan that has been put in place for a very long time. Okay, so Ferguson helped to catalyze. See, I just said the word catalyst. Isn't that funny? And then they say catalyze. Interesting, right? Ferguson helped to catalyze a movement to which we've all helped give life. Organizers who call this network home have ousted anti-black politicians, won critical legislation to benefit black lives, and changed the terms of the debate of blackness around the world. Through movement and relationship building, we have also helped catalyze, there's that word again, other movements and shifted culture with an eye toward the dangerous impacts of anti-blackness. These are the results of our collective efforts. The Black Lives Matter Global Network is as powerful as it is because of our membership, our partners, our supporters, our staff, and you. Our continued commitment to liberation for all black people means we are continuing the work of our ancestors and fighting for our collective freedom because it is our duty. Fascinating, though, that George Soros creates an organization that's using language saying our ancestors, right? The person who pays the bills is going to drive the agenda. Where the resources come from, that's going to have a big play in how things play out. So I find the language really interesting. Let me keep going. Every day we recommit to healing ourselves and each other and co-creating alongside comrade, ally, comrade. That word comrade is a big deal. The word comrade is important because comrade is typically used in the Communist Party movement. Now, here's the thing. I'm not a liberal or a conservative. I'm a person that believes in common fucking sense. That's all I believe in. I don't really give a shit if you're a Democrat or a Republican. If your ideas are good, I'm going to tell you they're good. If your ideas are stupid, I'm going to tell you they're stupid. So I don't fall into those boxes because I'm black first. B1. Type hashtag B1 in the chat if you get what I'm saying. And one of the things that occurs is that sometimes as a black man, when you're trying to navigate and understand what it means to have independence, freedom, and empowerment, while at the same time, fighting against, some of the other issues that exist out here in the world, you get confused, right? And so let me tell you about a time where there was an attempt to even confuse me. So one day I got a phone call. I'm friends with Cornel West. I love Dr. Cornel West. Now, mind you, Cornel West is very left. I'm not as far left as that, right? Like, I believe, for example, businesses can be a great thing for a community, and that capitalism isn't always terrible all the time. I think capitalism is not the best system, though, because it can be harmful, but I do think free enterprise and economic development is a very good thing for a country. I don't want everybody to be the same and to be poor, and I don't believe that the lazy motherfucker deserves to get the same shit as the person who worked his ass off. If you and I both grow up in the hood and I'm busting my ass and studying and working hard and saving my money and investing, and you all running around chasing women and throwing your money away on Gucci and Air Jordans, and then yeah, I want to be ahead of you. I don't want us to be in the same place because I don't believe that you should reward lazy motherfuckers. That's just my 2 cents. That's who I am. That's how I was built. I don't apologize for that. Now, here's the thing though, but despite that, I appreciate many of the ideas that come from the left, right? So that's why Cornel West and I love each other very much, and that will never ever change no matter what anybody says. So there was a guy who called me, a white guy, random white guy. Don't know why white people call me. White people are usually afraid of me. They don't talk to me. So I was like, why is this white guy calling me? So the white guy called me and he says, oh, Dr. Cornel West recommended that we reach out to you. And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, Cornel, that's my man. So what's going down? How can I help? Right? So he tells me that, he says, we're holding a protest, for the death of Mike Brown. At the time, that's what it was. So I said, okay, yeah, Mike Brown shouldn't have got killed. They shouldn't have shot that brother. That was wrong. So what can I do? Right? So I come to a meeting and they plan the protest. And I'm like, okay, we plan protest. And then I go to the protest. And while I'm at the protest, here's what's going on. This is what's fascinating. This is where I started understanding and researching the bigger war, right? So while I'm there, they're handing me these communist like newspapers and shit. And I'm like, I don't want to be a communist. I don't hate it. I just don't. That's not what I'm here for. I'm here to be black, right? So they're handing me this communist stuff. And then I go to another meeting, and at the meeting there are these really, really ride or die ass white people up in there. I'm talking about like bout it up in that mug, like ready to go to Ferguson and burn shit down, pop a cop if they got to, and I'm sitting here like, wow, these are some really ambitious white people. I've never seen white people like this up close. So because they're fascinating to me. When I distance myself because y'all like to be lynching Negroes and putting them in prison and all that. But when I'm around it, I'm just studying, and I must remember I'm a professor, so I'm taking in information. I'm like, wow, that white boy is really like he's really like gangster with his shit. So they're literally like about to get on the bus to go to Ferguson and just blow some shit up. And I'm like, wow, okay, fine. And then a week or two later, I get a call from the guy who brought me in, the friend of Cornel, who is basically telling me, Cornel West is going to have this big debate in New York, and he's going to debate some famous communist guy, and we want to take a bus up there, and we know you got some money, so we'd like for you to donate to pay for the bus. So my reaction is, fuck no. No, I'm not paying for anybody's bus. I'd rather send money to like a cousin or something, or somebody in my community that needs it. I'm not trying to pay for a bus full of white communists to go to New York. That's not interesting to me. And the guy keeps on pressing, and I'm trying to be polite, and I'm like, that's my problem. I'm too nice sometimes. So I'm like, hey, no, that's not. Nah, thank you, I appreciate it. Maybe I give $10 but this dude really wanted like some money, like $25,000 or something for this bus. And I eventually hung up on him. I said, don't call me anymore. Because he kept calling me. So my point in telling that story is, after I saw this and I started researching on how that section of Chicago, right around the University of Chicago, is just a very strong hotspot for very deep left ideas. Communist, socialist, just stuff that Antifa type stuff that I'm not into. I'm not into that. I don't hate it, but I'm not into that. That's what helped me understand. Okay, so I get it now. You were using my respect for Cornel West as an avenue to get in. You're no different from a guy who finds out that some pretty girl that she likes, that she likes to weave basket. She likes basket weaving, so he pretends to be interested in basket weaving because he's really trying to get some ass. That's what they were trying to do. They were basically trying to get some financial ass by basically pretending that we had something in common. And then after that, you start to realize what the agenda actually is. And I wasn't into that because I said, look, I'm here to be black, man. I am black first. And I'm not trying to do all this other shit you got going on. Because I went to a meeting and they're like our comrades, and I'm not stupid. I remember comrade, that's like a term they use a lot in Russia, and that's a communist kind of thing. So I'm just trying to say that you got to be really careful, black people, about being sucked into a bigger war, because bigger wars come with bigger consequences, and they also distract you from your core purpose. One good example that I brought up before is Vietnam. Ho Chi Minh, one of the great leaders of all time in Vietnam's history, was a guy who just wanted Vietnam to be free. The Vietnamese have been controlled by the French for over 100 years, and he was like, we want y'all out of this bitch. And so when World War II started, he saw that as an opportunity for Vietnam to be free, because the French got their ass kicked by the Germans for a little bit in World War II. They just kind of got punked. And so during that time, he was trying to get freedom, and what happened was the communists came along and offered to help him, and that's where the Viet Cong and all that came from. And what occurred, though, was that sometimes when you take support from a bigger group, a bigger cause, you attract bigger enemies, right? So I might live in a neighborhood where I don't want to be a Crip and I don't want to be a Blood, but I want protection. So I go to the Crips and I say, hey, I can use some protection. Well, guess what? I picked up some allies, but I also picked up bigger enemies. Now, because I'm a Crip, you know, this is back in the day, back when the gangster shit was real. Now the Crips and the Bloods, God bless them, they've learned that we're all in the same gang up in this bitch, and we got to be black first, and I'm so happy about that. But back in the 90s, it was real. It was like, okay, now that you're a Crip, now you walk around and you're blue, you're a target for anybody who doesn't like the fact that you're wearing blue, right? So black folks have to be cautious about getting involved in what can only be described as the globalized version of gangster shit. You know, the whole thing with the communists and the leftists versus the fascists and, you know, the people on the right, the Donald Trumps and the Republicans or whatever, has been going on for over 100 years. I don't think that is what we're here for. I think that we have to be smarter than Ho Chi Minh and the Vietnamese were, because what happened in Vietnam was the entire country got destroyed. The entire country got ripped apart. Divide and conquer was the order of the day, where you had Vietnamese families that loved each other killing each other because one had picked one side over the other. Well, black people are in the same boat. You're in the same boat because you got black people taking each other out, hating each other, killing each other digitally, so to speak, metaphorically, because I'm a Democrat and you're a Republican, or you're a Democrat and I'm a Republican, or I like Trump and you don't, or I'm a Joe Biden guy and you're not. So I'm unfriending you. I won't talk to you. You're ignorant. Fuck you, right? Because your dumb ass has got caught up in a white man's game. So I'm trying to say that if you're going to get caught up in the game, don't get caught up in the white man's game. Get caught up in the black man's game. Get caught up in the black woman's game. Get caught up in the black first game. Because at the end of the day, I don't give a fuck what your political affiliation is. I do not care if you are a Trump supporter to the end. If you black first, then we are fine. I don't care if you love Joe Biden. If you are black first, as long as that, to me, that's secondary. That's like the difference between grown up stuff and children's stuff. The political party you're in, that's children's stuff to me. That's secondary. That we know that doesn't matter because we've been voting for Democrats forever and it ain't done nothing for our community. We know it don't matter because Candace Owens can talk all day about the wonders of Donald Trump, and she knows at the end of the day she's being used up. She's going to be the next Omarosa in about 5 years. Mark my words, in about 5 years, Candace Owens is going to get booted out by the Trump administration, and she's going to write a tell-all book talking about the racism she endured as Donald Trump's little mistress or whatever the hell she is, right? So what I'm saying to you is at the end of the day, you got to know that you're black first. That's got to be important. If we're going to have a solid community, if we're going to win, we have to know what matters and what doesn't matter. What's our top priority? What's our secondary priority? What is the real shit versus what is the bullshit? So let me keep going. Let me keep reading on this thing on Black Lives Matter. Do me a favor, hit the thumbs up button. And if you want to follow me on Instagram, my Instagram is @TheRealBoyceWatkins. And so anyway, let me keep reading here. Listen to this. This is more. This is on the blacklivesmatter.com website, and it's under a section called What We Believe. You got to read this. They're not lying to you. They're not necessarily, they're a little deceptive, but they're not entirely deceptive. This information's publicly available, but y'all know we got some black folks that don't want to read. So when you don't read, when you don't learn, when you don't dig into the details, you get played. They say we respect, acknowledge, and celebrate differences and commonalities. This is where they're starting to ease into the other stuff, right? We work vigorously for freedom and justice for black people and by extension, all people. So Black Lives Matter, but all lives matter too, right? So that's almost what it sounds like. We intentionally build, see, they're easing you into it. Again, like I said, the guy that shows up and pretends like he likes the same things you like so he can get a piece of ass. And slowly but surely, as the night goes on, he's like, hey, girl, let me pour you a glass of wine. Hey, girl, you look good in those jeans, girl. Let me come sit next to me, girl. Right? He's easing into it. So they're easing into it. They got you all pumped up about, yeah, black people this, black people that. They're easing you into it. Pay attention. We work vigorously for freedom and justice for black people and, by extension, all people. We intentionally build and nurture a beloved community that is bonded together through a beautiful struggle that is restorative, not depleting. We are unapologetically black in our positioning. In affirming that Black Lives Matter, we need not qualify our position. To love and desire freedom and justice for ourselves is a prerequisite for wanting the same for others. So again, they're like, we want it for ourselves, but also we want it for others. We have a black agenda, but we also got this other agenda, right? Let me keep going. We are guided by the fact that all Black Lives Matter, regardless of actual or perceived. Here you go. Now he's dropping now he done pulled his penis out. We are guided by the fact that all Black Lives Matter, regardless of actual or perceived sexual identity, gender expression, economic status, ability, disability, religious beliefs or disbeliefs, immigration status, or location. Tell me, yes or no, does that not sound exactly like the Democratic Party leftist white liberal agenda? Tell me, does that not just like literally like it's coming out of a goddamn textbook sound exactly like somebody on the left would say when they're talking about what white liberals believe? Seriously, let's go down. Let's break this down. 3 statements were made related to sexual and gender identity. Sexual identity, gender expression, right? That's the LGBTQ, that's the alphabet boy agenda, like in a nutshell. Again, don't have an issue with it. I swear to God, there are plenty of people that I know who do whatever they do in the bedroom, love whoever they want. I do not judge you. If you are in that category, just know you are loved in this space. It's just I don't really give a fuck who you're having sex with. That's the Boyce Watkins position. Doesn't mean you have to hide it. Just means I don't necessarily care. Some of y'all might be sleeping with little with 4-year-old chinchillas in your bedroom, and it doesn't matter to me as long as no monkeys are hurt in the expression of your sexuality. Then I'm fine. I don't really care what you do in the bedroom. Some of you might be cheating on your wife. Some of you might be sleeping with a dude. Some of you might be big old freaks having sex with everything that moves. I don't care, right? And I think that goes back to that core idea that I was explaining to you guys. Dr. Claude Anderson talks about this. In order for you to achieve black power, you got to be focused, man. You got to be focused. And the problem is that you're not focused because you get sucked in to all these other issues, these other horizontal issues. You have to be black. Being black just means like, look, I'm black. You black. I'm wearing a blue shirt. You're wearing a red shirt. That don't mean I got to hate you because you're wearing a red shirt, because the color of our shirt is secondary to the fact that we both got this. We both got melanin. We're fighting the same battle. We want the same things. I'm a man, you're a man, we want strong families, or I'm a man and you're a woman, we want to love and support each other and build unity, right? So a Malcolm X-ish, Marcus Garvey-ish, nationalist-ish agenda is one that says we build strong communities, we build strong families. The father is really important in that family. No, you're not going to have the same thing when you got 2 mommies that when you have a mother and a father. Doesn't mean you can't have that in some communities, but the whole community can't all be trying to have sex with people of the same gender. That just doesn't work. Mathematically, it doesn't add up when it comes to things like reproduction or protecting the community, right? So it doesn't mean we hate you. It just means we love ourselves. It doesn't mean that we're against you. It means that we're for ourselves. And because I'm spending so much time being for me, I ain't got time to necessarily distract myself from my agenda so I can pursue your agenda. That's what I think is important to say. That's how you can express your blackness without it becoming something where you have to be, homophobic or whatever. And then the problem I have with those individuals, though, is they interpret you prioritizing yourself, you prioritizing your blackness to mean, that they have the right to label you. Oh, you're homophobic, or oh, you're hetero superior, or they have hetero superiority. They like to invent words. Because I read about the history, I was like, wow, these white people are crazy. Like, so I was reading the history of it, and I noticed how they like to invent words and label people, because it's like a type of social engineering. Because if I label you and make you feel like an outcast, then I'm going to force you to get in line. So it's a very fascist kind of way of thinking, like very much anti-freedom, very much anti, freedom of speech and expression just doesn't really apply when you go the further left you go, right? Because what they'll do is they'll take, like, for example, the fact that they would label the whole black church as homophobic, because you got millions of black people that go to church, listen to their pastor, read the Bible, and just don't necessarily agree with a certain lifestyle. Suddenly you're calling millions of black people homophobic. Like, fuck you, man. Seriously, like you ain't nothing but another slave master. Let me be me. Let me live. Let me keep going. Let me read more of this. I'm gonna read. This is a great paragraph here, because this is when they're pulling their penis out. This is when they're letting you know what the real agenda is, and how they're trying to basically make sweet love to you or screw you, depending on how you look at it. We are guided by the fact that all Black lives matter, regardless of actual or perceived sexual identity, gender expression, economic status, right? Again, part of the white liberal agenda, which is fine, which means like poor people, basically, right? Like poor people, we care more about the poor than we care about those dirty rich people. I think that in the black community, we care about poor people too, but we also believe that it's okay for black people to build wealth, right? Not only is it okay, but it is required, it is necessary, right? Because even with the leftists, they can't do all this stuff that they're doing, this organizing that they're doing all over the world, without having somebody funding them to the tune of several $1 million, right? It's ironic, right? On one hand, it's sort of like, we hate rich people are bad, but George Soros, if I'm not mistaken, made his money as a hedge fund manager. He just happens to be a liberal billionaire, and this billionaire built wealth that allowed them to pursue their agenda. So my argument for black folks is to say to you, they're building wealth to pursue their agenda. You got to build wealth to pursue your agenda. If you let them convince you that wealth does not matter, then you are basically allowing yourself to be controlled and pimped by whatever they want to do, because they've built their institutions, they've built their think tanks, they've built their white universities, which pretty much become havens for basically the indoctrination of millions of young people into the core values that they believe. So when I tell you that the Black Business School, our core value, for example, is we believe black people should educate our own children, create our own jobs, and support black businesses, we're basically pretty much doing the same thing that Harvard or Yale University does, where they support, a white liberal agenda, when they tell you that feminism is important. I went to, I had a goddaughter that graduated from Columbia, and I went to Columbia, and I got admitted there for my PhD. I turned them down, though. I went to a different school. But anyway, I went to the graduation speech, and I was listening to the president of the campus speak to the women who graduated from the women's side of Columbia University, called Barnard, right? But she's still a Columbia graduate. She played volleyball at Columbia University and all that. The Obamas went to Columbia as well. And so I was listening to this speech, and it was really interesting. Most campus presidents don't get real political when they give the commencement speech. They keep it real straightforward. Congratulations to the graduates. Good luck to you. Here's how you become successful, right? But she got really political. She got up there and she was like, in Texas, they're taking away a woman's right to choose. And in this state, they're doing this with abortion. Like, it was all about abortion and women's rights and stuff like that. And I said, wow, that's fascinating that she's giving a speech that's so politically driven at a commencement ceremony where everybody in that crowd may not agree with abortion. They may be pro-life. But you know what? She didn't give a shit, because it was their institution. It was their billions of dollars. I mean, Columbia University's endowment's probably $5, $10, $20 billion